You're listening to World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world. And here are your hosts, Aingeal Rose and Ahonu.
All right, you're very, very welcome. My name is Ahonu, and unfortunately we don't have Aingeal Rose with us again today. She's been missing the last couple of weeks. She hasn't been 100% well, but today she has to comfort her daughter because her daughter had a tragedy in their near family, and she had to go to, I think it was Wyoming, to take care of family things. So she's comforting her daughter right now. But I'm here speaking with Michael Koch, and we're going to be talking about some really interesting things today. Some of those covering the area of listening and relationships and writing and all of that. But I want to start off coming from the point of view that I was born and reared in Holy Catholic Ireland, and you have come from the Presbyterian tradition. Now, let me just preface all of this by saying that many people around the world are under the impression that there's this huge divide between Catholics and Protestants. And it has been my experience that that's not the case at all, that it is more a monetary thing actually, that for example the United Kingdom was able to offer more incentives, better hospitalisation, better healthcare, better roads, better this, that and the other, better defence, better policing and all of that. So a lot of people made the choice to belong to the United Kingdom, and it so happened that those people were Protestants, you see. So suddenly in the minds of the rest of the world there was this big divide. Now I know I'm oversimplifying all of this, but the reason I'm bringing that up by way of an introduction to you, Michael, is because that has been your upbringing. You've been Presbyterian. But I do know that things have changed radically for you over the years. So can you go back in time to that Presbyterian time and give us an idea of how it shaped your values and how it shaped your your view of the world?
Well, the first thing I'm going to disclose is that it's not quite that simple for me either, because I was in a split household. My father was Catholic.
Oh, right.
And my mother was very strong in her Presbyterian faith, right. And so she did not capitulate and agree to be raise her children Catholic, and therefore,
right.
and did not agree to become a Catholic. Therefore, she was not allowed to be married in the Catholic Church.
Okay. And this was a big issue because each religion demanded that the children be brought up in that religion.
Well, the Presbyterians didn't demand that.
Oh, well, certainly Catholics did.
I understand that. Yes,
yes,
but at least in the church I was in, Woodburn, Oregon, that was not the case.
Right. Okay.
But in addition to that, my father's family, which was large, there were 11. Right. 7 of whom lived in the small town that I grew up in St. Paul, Oregon. So I had half of my family, extended family, as Catholics, and I was a lone Protestant Presbyterian within my own extended family. Okay. So I was very aware of the differences, but mostly just because that's what I was told, that there's just a huge difference, and right. And then the freedom of religion basically boiled down to you could be Protestant or Catholic. You know, it was a lot much later in my life that I realized there were even other religions.
Yes.
And
but did it raise conflicts in the family as a young man, a young boy? You know, did you feel a kind of a split in your own thinking?
I didn't.
No,
I didn't.
okay.
I didn't really resonate well with the Presbyterian philosophy either. You know, this whole philosophy of Jesus on the cross, and we're born sinners, and
yes.
And if you don't believe this way, you're doomed to hell.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I just could not wrap my head around it, and I didn't buy into it.
Yes.
Nor did I have a personal experience with Jesus as I heard other people talk about. So
right. Yeah.
It was more. I just reached a point where I was glad to be rid of it when I left home and didn't have to go to please my mother to
Gotcha.
church and Sunday school every Sunday, and I then kind of just didn't think about it for a while.
Well, I'm glad we're having this discussion because you will know that we're not into religions at all, and I only introduced that Catholic Protestant thing by way of an introduction, really, and to get to position it in terms of where we're coming from, and especially where you're coming from. And so now that we're past that, and you're outside of the religious kind of indoctrination, what happened then in terms of your outlook on life and whatever belief systems might have come after that?
Well, I didn't have a lot of belief systems. I kind of just let go dormant the ones that were imposed upon me that I couldn't buy into anyway, the Christian philosophy. And when I went to college, I got into studying and learning how to drink and learning how to chase women.
Did you have to learn that?
Yeah, of course. Everybody has to learn it.
You mean learn to do it well?
Yes, I practiced it. Let me say I practiced it.
Yes.
And so I just kind of let the spiritual thing go. And every once in a while, I'd find myself in a slightly philosophical conversation, and I would just say it's beyond comprehension.
Right.
It's beyond comprehension. So.
Okay.
So then, my next entry into contemplating things of a spiritual nature came while I was in law school. So I was in my 24, 25, 26 age range, and had married at that time in my first year of law school, and it was in California, and this was in the mid 60s, and I'd gone down there from Oregon, believing that marijuana was a drug that only lowlifes participated in, to discover that at least half of my classmates in law school and some of the professors were into it, and I decided to try it, and it was a gateway for me. It gave me a different perception of things that jolted my brain and my way of thinking.
Really? Now, I've never tried it, but I'm interested because so many people that we know have tried it, and they've said similar things. And we're also hearing too that it's marijuana, a cure for cancer, and maybe not a cure, I don't know, so I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression, but certainly helps relieve the symptoms, or indeed some people are claiming cures from it. But the gateway idea is very interesting. Explain what you mean by a gateway.
Probably a better word, it was a catalyst.
Okay.
Because I am a very linear left brain kind of orientation. Studied engineering in school, in undergraduate, went into law school.
Very practical
left brain, and that is my dominant mode. But
right.
I have a more right brain sensitivity and a more inclusive, expansive part of me that comes up from time to time.
Right.
And so, what marijuana did was it opened more of that feminine, all-inclusive kind of awareness.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So from there, kind of the steps were I began to pay attention to the metaphysical materials.
Okay.
That was the time of Carlos Castaneda's books that talked about use of somewhat marijuana, but mostly peyote and mescaline and the altered consciousness and taking it into a deeper spirit experience, which was a spiritual experience, a deep spiritual connection.
Was ayahuasca around at that time? Or was that
It may have been, but I didn't learn about ayahuasca until about 10 years ago.
Yeah, it may have been in the jungles for years and years and years, which I think it originated, but it certainly hasn't come into mainstream only in the last 10 or 15 years, I think. Yeah, because it certainly is a new thing to me. So do you feel that was necessary? Like, would things not have evolved?
Probably would have been different, but it was what happened.
Yes.
And so it flowed from there, and it was impactful. And there was also the time of the book Ram Dass's "Be Here Now."
Yes.
And there was just kind of this I don't know if it's a counterculture. It was a growing awareness culture that I began to be exposed to, partially through those paths. That when you hang out with when you smoke pot and you hang out with people who smoke pot, then you start getting their philosophies and what they're into, and a lot of what was flowing out of that was the consciousness that was being talked about in these books.
Right.
So I picked up on that. I did some psychedelics of various types, and those were further expanding my connection with the awareness and the consciousness and glimpsing of a spirit connection.
Yeah.
And
well, do you know, I have to say, it's really interesting that you're revealing this to me, because, it's very hard to get away from judgments, even though we know that judgments are not necessarily the way to go. But we've come from a judgment background. And when I first met you, I would never have thought that you were into psychedelics at all, at any point in your life. It's interesting how we make these perceptions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I look pretty straight, and
you do, but you
I'm
come
not.
across so balanced and so clear.
I have a straight haircut,
Was it always like that, or was it like mine at some point?
I had a ponytail for a while.
You did.
And a beard. Yeah.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
God. Well, now look, you did mention to me that you were you're not a specialist, perhaps, but you certainly have a lot of experience in relationships. Can you go into that a little bit and explain what that's all about?
Well, it's all a continuum,
Okay.
and I think that I'm going to close on this mind expanding experimental stuff, because it reached a point where I decided to stop.
Okay.
And even though I had got to a point where I was using marijuana quite a bit, I at about age 32 in the early 70s, as I was finding great comfort in the Eastern philosophies and metaphysical philosophies, and I determined that I needed to learn how to meditate, and I was led to an Indian guru, and I decided, actually partly because he said don't. I stopped smoking pot at that time and taking psychedelics, and didn't for really 30 or 35 years.
Okay.
A long time.
Right.
So, but all of that kind of helped me prepare for doing better at relationships. I'd had one marriage that terminated because we didn't know what we were doing. We were young, didn't know how to handle problems.
Sure.
And it was frustrating. And then I had a period of singlehood, which is where I did a lot of my introspective and reading about spirit, meditation, things beyond. So
right.
By the time I got to the next relationship, I was better prepared.
Well, now, to put this in context in terms of a timeline, you mentioned that you were in your 30s in the 1970s. So that makes you
74
in
2 weeks.
Well, you don't look it now, honestly.
I think there's a mistake on my birth certificate. That's
there
the only
must
thing
be.
I guess.
Yes, you must be, because I have to say, you look great.
Well, thanks.
Yeah,
you do too.
You do. And I wonder, is it anything to do with the way we've been brought up? Is it anything to do with our lifestyle? Is it something to do with that awareness that you have of the continuum of life that you're talking about?
Who knows?
Yeah.
I got good genes.
Right.
I eat well. I take good care of my health, and I think I'm just blessed.
Yeah.
My 71-year-old brother has about the same body I do, and is in as good a health as I am.
Right.
And he didn't do any of the things I did.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the relationship thing, though, has obviously stood by you. Now, you have offered mediation services in the past. Do you think that experience with your relationships has helped you to do that?
Yes, and vice versa. I'm in my 5th long-term committed relationship, 2 marriages, and 2 4 or 5 year terms. That's not the right word to use, but time frames. And now I'm in year 5 or year 6, started year 6 with Karen.
Right.
And in each there has been a lot of learning, usually around the conflict.
Right.
Or around the pain that led to the termination, and the learning both dealing with that and in the termination process and in the healing afterwards and in the period of singledom in between. And so it's hard to summarize it because it's been a continuum, and I can kind of tell you where I am now,
Yes.
But
Yeah.
and that's probably more. I don't know if that's more interesting than
Yes,
I got
absolutely.
there,
I do want you to bring that up to the present day, because obviously what you're doing now is very important for our listeners and for our viewers, because you do have, and one of the things is the reasons it's how we actually met is because you are into a kind of a spiritual awareness type of methodology and a thinking. So
and have been for a long time.
Yeah. So tell us how that
Okay.
happened.
Okay, so the spiritual awareness thing.
Yes.
Well, I gave you a part of it. You know,
Yeah.
that I kind of flowed into not thinking about it, and then being introduced to the metaphysical and Eastern in the 70s, and that included 12 years with an Indian guru from whom I learned how to meditate and be within, and to be in a focused devotional state.
Okay.
And then a bit of time with with Ramtha, who's a channeled entity, who talked about going deeper, and then I kind of rejected him after a while, and got to a point where during this time, doing a lot of reading, I read a lot of books about people's experiences with connecting with spirit.
Yes.
Meditations, out-of-body experiences, channeling, and listening to various stories and approaches. And at this point, and for some time now, my most important book and vehicle of learning is Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, which is, it's now 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Still just as valid, though.
Still just as valid,
Yeah.
and it brought a very simple orientation to my philosophy, which is that I am a spirit in a human body. A lot of people have said that. I realize that, and that my purpose here is to do learning, and part of that learning is to learn about acceptance of what is, which is huge. Acceptance
Yes.
of what is, because we absolutely cannot change it. We can
Yeah.
affect the future by what we do and what we think, but we cannot change what is in the present.
But that's a wonderful realization.
It
though,
is.
Because, you mentioned about your upbringing and how you've accepted all that. A lot of people are going through life with these memories of their childhood, but they're bringing it forward into the now, and it's affecting their future in terms of saying, I wish that didn't happen, or I wish my parents were better, or I wish my father wasn't an alcoholic, or my mother, whatever, and that I wasn't abused, and that this didn't happen, and so they're dragging all this stuff continually forward. You're saying that you've been able to release that and been able to let that go.
I don't have a lot of regret, or a lot of I wish I hadn't done that, because it just doesn't make any difference.
Yes.
I was in a group discussion one time where this guy said something very profound. He said, "I've given up the desire to have a perfect past."
Oh,
Wow, and
that's beautiful.
it's so simple, but it's true. I cannot change the past.
That's beautiful.
So here I am, and in the present, and struggling at times to wish it had been different. You know that I injured my hand 6 weeks ago with a power tool, and I sure wished that hadn't happened.
Right.
But not very long. I got into the acceptance of it and the dealing with life moving forward from that.
And that was a frightening experience, I have to say. You basically took the tips off your two fingers.
And they're healing nicely.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Astonishing, because I thought they would have been quite shorter than the others.
Yeah. Well, they're it's a little bit, but not much.
Yeah. And in looking at that now from the philosophical perspective that you have learned and you use, what do you think that was all about?
I have yet to figure it out, but this is what I do know.
Yeah.
That I've had enough experiences in life to know that it's not random motion. I have had experiences of being guided to certain people that led to a relationship, or led to a business situation, or led to a job.
Right.
I have watched in situations where I missed death by just that far, and I think, it just wasn't my time to go.
Sure.
So when this happened, I had, at first it was oh no, I'm not ever going to be able to play the guitar again, and I think I will, but very quickly, all right, this is it.
Yeah.
Get to the doctor.
Yeah.
Get the surgery, get it done, and just start living from this point, because there had to be some purpose.
Yes.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
particular, but I do have noticed that since I've been working with power tools since that time, 6 weeks ago, I've been a whole lot more careful. I'm really paying attention to where my hands are and what those whirling things are doing, because I don't want anything else to happen. Part of it is I don't have quite as the dexterity yet, so I need to be careful.
But a lot of times we never know what the deeper meaning is.
Yeah.
But except that in some way we're guided. I mean, perhaps it saved you from another accident somewhere else. Who knows? I mean,
but I also don't really need to know. It just is, and life goes forward. And part of that is in this philosophy that I've adopted of accept what is, because you can't change it.
Yes.
Now I can envision about these fingers healing well. I can envision hold the vision of the joy I'm going to feel when I start playing guitar again, and that all has some effect on the healing and what's going to happen. But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let us remind our listeners and our viewers that we're speaking with Michael Koch, and we're talking about philosophy in general, your background and your upbringing, and how all that has led you to the here and now, and what's going on in your life now in terms of your ability to be able to understand what's going on in the bigger picture, how that whole relationship, the relationships of your past have helped you to understand the ones that are going on right now. But also, we're going to take, of necessity, which we usually do and we have to do, a quick little commercial break right here. And when we come back, I want to talk to you, Michael, about your writing, because it's something that we've been involved in with you. And also, I have a little snippet of information for people when we come back right after this.
Hi, I'm Aingeal Rose of Grady, and I'm here to talk to you tonight about the work that I've done for the past 20 years, being a reader of the Akashic Records, predominantly. I've evolved to this work through many years of meditation and being taken to other worlds, and found that we all have a library in spirit that contains our soul's journey through all of our lifetimes on this planet and others. Through my work, I enjoy helping other people find their soul purpose, look at their spirit, help them through their challenges, understand their relationships, and guide them to fulfill their highest soul purpose. I've written 2 books on this subject. One's called A Time of Change, and those were predominantly group sessions that we did when people had bigger spiritual questions for the problems in their lives, such as what about the financial collapse? What about 2012? What about healing? What happens when people commit suicide? Things like this that became the basis for group sessions that began in 2009 and continue to this day. The first book, A Time of Change, deals with questions that happened before 2012, and some leading into what would happen after. And the second book, The Nature of Reality, deals with questions people asked about consciousness, what is God, what's the origin of creation, what about time and dimensions, what about dreams, why do we dream, and love and miracles and topics such as that. I'm also a personal Akashic Record consultant, and I'm also a business consultant through the Akashic Records. I feel these ways of going into the records and helping people in their personal lives and in their business adds an extra sacred dimension to their life here. If you're interested in seeing more about my work, you can go to aingealrose.com or worldofempowerment.com. Thank you.
This book is Ahonu's true story about the loss of his first child, his pain and his struggle with grief and guilt, and the coming to terms with his loss. It forms the foundation of his entire philosophy of life and is a superb grounding in the growth of spiritual awareness. It's truly an epic voyage from the pain and sorrow of a father's grief to the new world of love and forgiveness. Buy it. It is life-changing.
Okay, welcome back.
All right.
My name is Ahonu, and I'm speaking with Michael Koch. Michael Koch. In the earlier section, we've been speaking about his background and the philosophies that he has come up with and where it has allowed you now to be who you are in the here and now. Very present, very coherent, very aware of the whole idea of being a spirit in a human body. Now, one of the things that I know about you that you failed to mention was that you're very experienced in a lot of things, and we do want to talk about the writing, but before we do, you were a builder of everything from instruments to houses. Give us some little idea what that's about.
Well, it's a form of expression, and I find a lot of meditative experience in it.
Okay.
My dad was a small-time home builder, worked on the job himself, was the contractor, but he taught me how to use tools early on because he had learned how to use tools from his father early on.
Okay.
So 6 or 7, I started working with buzzing and whirling things.
Right. What would he say now if he knew about your fingers?
He'd say, well, shit happens, you know.
Okay. It does.
Watch where you put your hands.
Yeah, now you
Pay
know.
attention, yes.
Now you're paying more attention.
Yeah. So what I learned from him, probably one of the most important things was, not quite along the line of building, but he was a fixer. If something was wrong, the toaster, the iron, whatever it was, he'd open it up on a kitchen table and with confidence that he could figure it out. Okay. That was when things were simpler.
Yes.
You know, you can't quite do that so much now, but I have that confidence that if there is a problem, you know, or a situation that's building or a relationship or whatever, it is possible if you give it attention and understand it and open it up and look at it, whether it's figuratively with physical things or figuratively with relationships or literal with physical things, you can usually figure out what's going on. Or we've got Google, you can Google, and somebody will tell you what to do. But,
right, yeah. But
so,
they can't do that with relationship stuff.
You can too. There are tips on Google about relationships.
Oh, there are.
But so I learned that, and I have really enjoyed through my life and in certain segments of time focusing on building things. Houses are fantastic because they are like a slow manifestation process. You have the vision of the house, and then the land, and you envision it building there, and then you get the plans, and then you get the parts, and you put them together one by one. You build a house one board at a time. And it's fantastic.
I do know from my own experience, it is a fantastic
It's fantastic.
thing. I haven't built one from the ground up, but I have done huge major restorations, including the roofs and everything, doors and windows, floors, the whole lot. But I have to say, it is a very satisfying thing because you feel that the vision, you feel it coming into creation almost. Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, usually you have more done than at the beginning of the day. You know, if you don't, then you've had a bad day.
Yeah. Or if you have to do something over, you learn. But now it's an interesting thing, though, that you would see that the correlation between building, in a sense, and building your life, because that's what you've been doing. You know, you've been taking these experiences and growing and building.
That's true. Yeah, and I didn't quite think about it that way.
Yeah.
But I did learn those skills, and I've done a fair amount of remodeling. Usually, when I buy a house to live in, I fix it up, and it's better than when I left.
Yes.
But it is a process that I like, and I guess one reason is it's a nice combination of mental and physical.
Yeah.
There's a lot of thinking and planning and strategizing, and then you do it.
Yes.
And if you run into a problem, then there's more analysis and thinking on what are the options. And one of the things that it's kind of to segue into the spiritual experience, what I have learned is that if I have a problem, a situation, I don't know how to do this, I don't know what the next step is, I don't know how to fix this. If I just relax and spend a little time, and oftentimes it takes a night's sleep, I very often wake up in the morning with the answer. And so I have great trust for whatever is my internal, outside of the body, whatever it is, experience.
Do you think that's coming from that gateway experience you had, or from the meditation?
It's not coming from either. I think that those practices help me be more receptive to it.
Okay.
You know?
And is that a quality, Michael, do you think, that everybody has but perhaps is not aware of it?
I think everybody has their own degree of it, yes.
Okay.
And a big piece of it is being willing to pay attention to it and listen to it. I'm going to take a little bit of a side here, because one thing that has been really important is part of my own solo spiritual practice, if I say I have a spiritual practice, it is that I journal.
Okay.
I journal, and periodically, every week, 2 weeks, sometimes a little bit longer, and after I kind of do my diary of what's been happening, somewhat writing down the things I'm facing, I then invite Spirit to write to me with my invocation is, and now I ask Spirit and my divine inner guidance for input and guidance for these times and issues.
Wow.
And then they write to me in the third person.
Okay.
Or is it the second person? Anyway, they say, dearest Michael. It's always dearest Michael.
Yeah.
And they go from there. So I'm not in a trance.
Sure.
But it's thoughts that come in, and I've been doing this for 30 years probably.
And it's not automatic writing.
It's not automatic writing, but it's thoughts that come in, and I just write them down. I could stop it.
I'm
change.
glad that you brought this up, because, as I mentioned before the break, that I do want to talk to you about this writing, because 2 reasons. First of all, because we are recently new publishers, actually, and we're really excited about this venture that we're in, the publishing business. But also, we are we've been promoting a product that Aingeal Rose created a couple of years ago. It's a home study course called Journal Your Way to a Happy Life. And it's about how to journal, because you glossed very quickly and lightly over journaling, but there is actually a little bit of a technique to it. And you've just put your finger on one of those wonderful techniques where you allow the freedom of yourself to come onto the paper. And that's an amazing thing, because we have found that real insights can come out of that.
Absolutely.
So let's now talk about writing. Okay. You've used that to great effect, obviously. Is there a book coming out of you, do you think, from your journaling?
Possible. I have a box of journals, a big box of journals, and I'm thinking, well, that's the book. It's already there. I just need to put it together.
Okay, yeah. Maybe there's 10 books.
Yeah. But it would be, autobiographical kind of thing. Yeah. But a lot of lessons in it.
Okay.
So let me just say a little bit more about my journaling experience, because it does segue into this writing group that we've been doing. And what I have found is that my key to receiving the guidance is to just flow with it and write down whatever comes into my mind. Now, there's a discernment that has to happen there, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in my mind all the time. I kind of assume that's true for everybody. Voices, shoulds, shouldn't, judgment of myself, of others. So there's a trick in discerning what is really guidance is coming through and what's just mind chatter.
Yes.
Or self-destructive stuff, right?
Yes.
So I don't even know how I did it, but I now, when I'm doing the journaling and I give that invocation and that invitation, I just trust that whatever comes into my brain is what I'm supposed to write.
Okay, so you're taking the judgment out of it, and you're also taking out of it whether this is good writing or not. You're not making corrections as you go, in a sense.
And when I go back and read it, it's flawless. It's good sentences, it's creative expression. It's not scratched out and started over, you know.
Yeah. So would you say that is spirit flowing through you and the pen onto the paper? When you say it's flawless, I mean... Yeah.
I don't know where it comes from. I could say I could get into it's external and I'm being guided by an angel or something. Or I could just say it's part of my subconscious. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me.
Right. Yeah.
It's wise. I take it down. I write it down, and when I reread it, it's not directive. It's gentle. It's kind. It's kind of like, if there's a decision and a choice point, Michael, it doesn't matter what your choice is.
Yeah.
Because if it's the wrong choice, it will be self-correcting. So just make a choice.
We've been helping people for years about getting to that inner issues, the core things that are motivating them, the reasons why they do what they do or whatever, or the reasons why something might have happened in their life, whether it's a divorce or a death or whatever. In other words, we believe that writing about it can actually isolate what is the underlying issue. Whether it's anger or jealousy or envy or whatever it is. But at least once it's out in the open, you can then make a decision about it. You can, as you said about the past, you can say, well, that's something that's come from my past, I'm prepared to let it go now, or I'm going to work towards forgiving it or healing
making
it,
a change as
or
a result.
whatever. Yeah. But the fact is, though, that if you don't write about it, it's very hard to get at it.
Well, I think it has to be expressed. I think, and then that's kind of where the mediation comes in, is that what I've learned is if people can express what it is that's blocked inside, it opens them to letting it go and moving on.
Okay.
And I think for me, that writing does that as well. It's my own self-guided experience of releasing through expression.
Right. Now, I'm going to introduce to our audience what Michael does in terms of this little writing group that he mentioned. And the surprise that I have for you is that, unknown to Michael, I actually read in another little session 3 stories that I wrote inspired by Michael's technique, as it were. And what his technique is really, he comes into the group with a little one-liner, some little statement, a prompt. You call it a prompt, yeah. And then I know that when the group hears the prompt for the first time, you're saying, like, what can I do with that? How do I begin with this? But the moment you let go and start writing, it's like as if a story forms. Isn't that what happens? Can you explain that process? Describe to our listeners and our viewers what you actually do, because I call it magic. Seriously.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, background, I've been doing this exercise in a writers group in Mexico where I've been going for 10 or 20 years, and so I've been doing it for 6 or 7 or 8 weeks a year for that many years, and so I'm very confident in the process. And basically, what you said, I come with a prompt, and I say we're going to write for 45 minutes, and here's the prompt, and then I'll give you a heads up at 40 minutes so you can kind of wrap it up, and we write. And my experience with it is just that, similar to when I write in response to my guides in my journal, I just write whatever comes into my head, and I don't edit it, I don't judge it, I just start writing, and it starts to unfold into a story that I have no idea where it's going or how it's going to end, but it always does.
Yes, it does.
It always does, and you've had the same experience.
I know, and I find it amazing that, if you, I did attend at one point in time some kind of a structured writing thing, back in my 20s. And I always remember them saying that, any story must have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in a way, I was coming to the writing group with this kind of preconceived idea that, I must have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But yet, in the group, the way you have it, this prompt, it's like as if that goes out the window, the beginning, middle, and end thing. It actually happens automatically that there is a beginning, a middle, and an end.
I'm glad you have that experience. We haven't really talked about your experience with it, other than you're sharing your stories. Yeah, we finished the group by everybody reading their stories to the others for comments. So that's how we know what other people have written.
Yeah.
But you have done some amazing stories. So I
but
know you're getting it. You're doing it similar to
I love it. I absolutely love it, because it's like journaling. It's the journaling thing, because when you read those stories back and when you look into what you wrote, or even if you just relax into that stream of consciousness that makes the story, it gives you insights actually about yourself and what's going on in your life, even though that's not what you intended. You don't set out with that in mind, and neither do you set out with a structure that I'm going to have the beginning, middle, and end, and I'm going to have chapter 1 and chapter that. None of that enters into it.
So the curiosity I have, and I think maybe you do too, is where does that come from? Yeah. Where does that story come from?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, but it's I have the same confidence that it's going to happen every week.
Yeah.
Because I have doubts when I go in there.
Sure.
I don't choose to prompt until I get there, so I don't have a chance for my mind to.
I know, I admire that.
To practice.
Because you could be driving to the group and you're saying, I know what my story is going to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But just have the confidence that it is going to flow, just the same as I have the confidence that when I invite my guides, they are going to speak to me. Or when I have a problem with the thing I'm trying to fix, I'm going to wake up in the morning with a solution. I think it is a lot of the same process and the same conviction that, I guess the way I put it, I believe I am divinely guided at all times by some combination of myself and a consciousness that's greater than me, and I trust
But isn't
it.
that the case with everybody, but they don't all realize it?
I have no idea of other people's experiences except what they share with me, and some do. And some talk about that.
Yeah. Now, I think there's a beautiful takeaway here for people who are listening and viewing it, and it has been my experience that many people would pay thousands of dollars for some kind of a writing course, or to get their book down on paper, some kind of guidance and help and instruction. And in that short 45 minutes with Michael Koch, you actually overcome all those objections and all those obstacles, and you get the material down. You get the people writing their material down with no writer's block.
I take no responsibility or credit for it whatsoever. I just come there with a prompt, and I guess I help create an environment and give the permission, and the writers that come in contribute. You all do, and it happens magically for everybody.
But what I love is, and I asked you earlier, is there a book in you? And sure enough, there must be 10 now from what you've said about all the journaling that you've done. But I also believe that there's a book in everybody, and even if you take the takeaway from today is, okay, I'm just going to give myself a prompt and I'm going to start writing, and then after 45 minutes I'll read it back and see what happens. You might already have created chapter 1.
Or the complete story.
You
think about it, we write for 45 minutes and we have maybe, page and a half, 2 pages, 3 at the most. And it's all complete in and of itself. It could be expanded upon, but still the story is there. Is there.
I want you to comment, Michael, about handwriting with a pen or using a computer. Is there any difference in your experience?
Well, I've been writing with it on the computer for quite some time, and I like that because then it's there and it's captured, and then I can store it. And then when I screwed my hand up here, I wrote one time with a pen, and I found I wrote more, so it's actually faster.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think the result was pretty much the same. So I'm comfortable writing on a computer. I do it all the time, and I type. I learned in sophomore in high school how to type, and stayed with me, so it's faster.
I found, and it's only my experience, that because I use computers all day, every day too, and I have believed up to now that, like you, that it was faster to type. But in your class, I have chosen to come in with the pad and the paper. And I found it very interesting. It was different than if I was writing on the computer. I found it more expressive somehow.
I think it could be,
yeah. It's like as if, I don't know, like the creativity was coming down your arm, or I mean, I mentioned automatic writing, and maybe there's a different idea behind that, but in a sense it felt as if it was your story was flowing out of you.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because when I journal, I do handwrite in a spiral notebook.
Okay.
And so I think probably a lot of ways I certainly do feel comfortable pen writing.
Yeah. And in this day and age, because everything is mobile phones and computers and stuff, my handwriting is atrocious from what it was when I was in school, So when the first time really that I've used the handwriting is in your little writing group, and I found myself, oh my God, I could hardly read my own writing. It was so bad. But in that couple of weeks, it has improved tremendously. It's like as if that old flow was coming back, Yeah, that's interesting. God. Now, we are going to have to come to a close here very, very shortly. But before we do, I want, if it's okay with you, Michael, that people, if they wanted to contact you, can you do that?
Sure.
Do you mind if people were to email you or something? Yeah. Or do you have a website?
Don't have a website.
Okay.
I can give an email address.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, it's my full name, Michael Ray Koch, and that's a Koch Cook. So it's Michael, MichaelRay Koch AOL.com.
At AOL.com.
I'm,
Okay.
I'm one of the few people I know who still use AOL, but I like it.
I haven't heard the AOL in a long time. Okay, Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure having you with us, and I know, and I do believe that people will benefit from listening to your story and your guidance about writing and journaling and mediation and relationship and your whole life story.
Well, maybe another time we can talk on mediation, because that's the whole chapter.
Sure
itself.
it is, yeah, sure it is,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
beneficial.
Yeah, super. From myself, Ahonu, and from Aingeal Rose, and from Michael Koch, till the next time.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Aingeal Rose and Ahonu on World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world.